Brazil is a country of extraordinary diversity and immense beauty, a land where lush rainforests meet golden beaches and vibrant cities pulse with energy. But behind Brazil's breathtaking landscapes lies a rich and complex history, one that stretches back thousands of years and weaves together the stories of its indigenous peoples, European explorers, African slaves, and modern citizens. Our story begins long before Brazil became a nation. Archaeologists believe that the first humans arrived in what is now Brazil over 10,000 years ago during the last ice age. These early settlers likely traveled from Asia, crossing the Bering Strait and gradually migrating southward through the Americas. By around 8000 BCE, these groups had established themselves in various parts of Brazil, forming diverse societies and adapting to the different environments. Some lived in the Amazon rainforest, practicing slash-and-burn agriculture and developing sophisticated knowledge of the jungle's plants and animals. Others settled along the coastline, where they fished, hunted, and built small villages. One of the most famous archaeological sites in Brazil is Serra da Capivara, located in the northeast. This site contains ancient rock art, some of which dates back more than 12,000 years, offering a glimpse into the lives and beliefs of Brazil's earliest inhabitants. Over time, indigenous groups developed complex societies, with some practicing agriculture, growing crops like cassava, maize, and sweet potatoes. Others were nomadic, moving with the seasons to hunt and gather food. By the time Europeans arrived in the 1500s, Brazil was home to an estimated 2 to 6 million indigenous people, speaking hundreds of different languages and organized into distinct tribes such as the Tupi, Guarani, and Yanomami. The arrival of Europeans in 1500 marked a dramatic turning point in Brazil's history. On April 22nd of that year, Portuguese explorer Pedro Álvares Cabral landed on the Brazilian coast near present-day Porto Seguro. Although Cabral's discovery was somewhat accidental, he had been heading to India. It established Portugal's claim to the land under the Treaty of Tordesillas, a 1494 agreement that divided the New World between Spain and Portugal. Cabral named the land Terra de Vera Cruz, Land of the True Cross, but it soon became known as Brazil, after the Brazilwood tree that grew abundantly along the coast. This tree produced a valuable red dye, which became one of Brazil's first major exports. At first, the Portuguese showed little interest in colonizing Brazil, focusing instead on their lucrative trade routes in Asia. However, as French and Dutch pirates began to raid the coast and exploit its resources, Portugal decided to establish a more permanent presence. In 1532, the first Portuguese settlement was founded at São Vicente, and in 1549, the colonial capital was established in Salvador. The Portuguese introduced sugarcane farming, which quickly became Brazil's main economic activity. Sugar plantations required a large labor force, and when the indigenous population began to decline due to disease and conflict, the Portuguese turned to Africa for slaves. The transatlantic slave trade became a defining feature of Brazil's colonial period. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, an estimated 4 to 5 million Africans were forcibly brought to Brazil, more than any other country in the Americas. These men and women came from diverse regions of Africa, bringing with them their languages, religions, and cultural practices. Despite the brutality of slavery, African traditions profoundly influenced Brazilian culture, from music and dance to cuisine and religion. Capoeira, a unique blend of martial arts and dance, and candomblé, an Afro-Brazilian religion, are just two examples of this rich legacy. By the 17th century, Brazil had become the world's largest producer of sugar, making it a vital part of the Portuguese Empire. However, the discovery of gold and diamonds in the 1690s shifted the focus to the interior. The Minas Gerais region experienced a gold rush, attracting fortune seekers from Portugal and other parts of Brazil. Towns like Ouro Preto grew rapidly, and the wealth generated from mining financed the construction of magnificent churches and public buildings. But this prosperity came at a cost. Enslaved Africans were forced to work in the mines under harsh and dangerous conditions. The 18th century brought challenges to Portuguese rule in Brazil. Enlightenment ideas of liberty and equality began to spread, inspiring uprisings such as the Inconfidência Mineira in 1789. Although this rebellion, led by Tiradentes, was ultimately unsuccessful, it planted the seeds of independence. Meanwhile, geopolitical events in Europe set the stage for dramatic changes. In 1808, the Portuguese royal family fled to Brazil to escape Napoleon's invasion of Portugal. King João VI established his court in Rio de Janeiro, transforming the city into the de facto capital of the Portuguese Empire. Under João's rule, Brazil experienced significant reforms, including the opening of its ports to international trade and the establishment of cultural institutions like the National Library. When João VI returned to Portugal in 1821, his son Dom Pedro stayed behind to govern Brazil. However, tensions between Brazil and Portugal escalated, culminating in Dom Pedro's famous Declaration of Independence on September 7, 1822. "Independence or death," he proclaimed, and Brazil became an independent empire with Dom Pedro as its first emperor. The transition was relatively peaceful compared to other independence movements in Latin America, but challenges remained. The new nation faced political instability, regional divisions, and economic dependence on slavery. The abolition of slavery became one of the most significant and contentious issues in Brazil's 19th century history. While other countries in the Americas abolished slavery earlier, Brazil clung to the institution, which was deeply entrenched in its economy and society. However, growing pressure from abolitionist movements, combined with international condemnation, led to gradual reforms. In 1871, the law of the free womb granted freedom to children born to enslaved mothers, and in 1888, slavery was finally abolished with the signing of the Golden Law by Princess Isabel. This made Brazil the last country in the Americas to end slavery, leaving a profound legacy of inequality and discrimination. Just 1 year after the abolition of slavery, Brazil underwent another seismic change: the end of the monarchy. In 1889, a military coup overthrew Emperor Dom Pedro II, and Brazil was declared a republic. The early Republican period was marked by political and social upheaval, as powerful landowners dominated the government and marginalized groups struggled for representation. However, the economy continued to grow, fueled by exports of coffee, rubber, and other commodities. The 20th century brought rapid modernization and profound changes to Brazilian society. During the presidency of Getúlio Vargas, 1930 to 1945, Brazil underwent industrialization, urbanization, and labor reforms. Vargas, often called the father of the poor, introduced social welfare programs and promoted national pride, but his authoritarian rule also stifled political opposition. In 1964, a military coup ushered in 2 decades of dictatorship, characterized by censorship, repression, and economic growth fueled by ambitious infrastructure projects. The return to democracy in the 1980s marked a new chapter in Brazil's history. The country faced significant challenges, including economic crises, corruption, and social inequality, but it also experienced moments of triumph. Brazil became a global leader in renewable energy, developed a vibrant cultural scene, and gained international recognition for hosting major events like the FIFA World Cup and the Olympics. Today, Brazil is a dynamic and diverse nation, home to over 200 million people. Its culture, shaped by Indigenous, African, and European influences, is celebrated worldwide. From the rhythms of samba and bossa nova to the breathtaking Amazon rainforest, Brazil continues to captivate the imagination. Its history is a testament to resilience and creativity, a story of struggle and progress that reflects the spirit of its people.